Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. Alright, it is May 23rd. Yesterday, we had an episode. We talked NFC West. Alright, talked Cowboys, talked Eagles, talked Redskins, talked Giants. Okay. Said today we would be talking AFC West. And I guess it's a good thing that I decided to do that today. Yesterday, we had OTA starting up around the league. Some went well for some teams, some went poorly for others. The Chargers were a team where their first day of OTAs went poorly. Okay. Hunter Henry, their starting tight end. The man who was pretty much set up to take over now that Antonio Gates is gone. Blew out his knee. Tore his ACL yesterday at OTAs. I guess it was with it happened with him during him running routes. I think it was him himself or the coach that said that he's run those routes thousands of times, and it's just one of those freak accidents, I guess. And it just seems that like more and more players now are just tearing their ACLs. Okay? And I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's like just not enough cleat support as far as cutting and all that. But they got to figure something out. Because, I mean, you should never tear your knee up running routes. Okay? Especially when it's something you've been doing forever and you've never had a problem with it. But nonetheless, yeah. Now I gave us something to talk about today for the Chargers. And that's who we're going to start out today with. So we're spending the first segment talking about the Chargers. Second segment, we'll talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Third segment, we'll talk about the Raiders. Fourth segment, we'll talk about the Broncos. All right. I don't think I got enough to say about the Raiders. I'm pretty much paying attention to them all offseason long. So far, I mean, I'm not going to say I agree with what John Gruden has done, because I don't. But I really hope he just doesn't send this team back right before they go to Vegas. Because, I mean, with the Raiders, we were talking about them being Super Bowl contenders last season before the season started. That was supposed to be the year, all right? The year before that, they made the playoffs, but Derek Carr got hurt, so they didn't have him for their playoff game. This past season was supposed to be something different. But, I mean, Derek Carr fracturing his back and Amari Cooper forgetting how to catch the ball wasn't really something that helped. It also doesn't help when you got probably the worst defense in the league. All right. And that's one thing, too. If Oakland hasn't fixed up their defense, or the defense just comes out and is shaky this season, Oakland won't do anything this season. It's always defense that matters the most. Okay? You can't win a game if you're getting up 30-plus points a game. That's just not a recipe for success. All right, so that's one thing we'll be talking about. With the Chiefs, how good is Pat Mahomes? Because that's going to make or break your season. All right. Alex Smith, I thought, was a very good quarterback. Obviously, the Chiefs thought it was time to move on. Alex Smith is now in Washington. We talked about him and the Washington Redskins yesterday on yesterday's show if you want to check that out. But I don't know. Andy Reid has always had a lot of success with quarterbacks, from McNabb to Kevin Cobb that one year. All right, to Alex Smith. Maybe he could do the same with Patrick Mahomes. I wouldn't doubt it. Like I said, he's been good with the quarterbacks. And then for the Broncos, the biggest problem with them last 2 years has been quarterback. All right, ever since Peyton Manning retired, they haven't replaced him. Wasted probably two Super Bowl opportunity seasons. I mean, they've been that good. And now it's just a matter of, can Case Keenum get him back to the playoffs? This team's still in their prime. Still got a lot of young players right in their prime right now. Von Miller's only 28. Chris Harris Jr. has got to be like 25, I think. Bradley Roby's still pretty young. And then you got Demaryius Thomas, who wasn't far off from a 1,000-yard season this past year. So that's what's going on with them. Also, you take Bradley Chubb in the top 5 of the draft. Him and Von Miller seems like a pretty scary pairing there. All right. So those are pretty much all the storylines I'm going to be touching on. Of course, we'll be looking through each team's schedule, making my win-loss picks, and pretty much talking about anything else also. It's not going to be the only thing. So that's how the show's going to go. So let's get started with the Chargers. Like I said, first day of OTAs yesterday. Chargers, years looking bright for them. Got a very good defense, top 10. All right. Arguably got a top 10 offense. Division's looking pretty weak. All right, it's up for the taking, and this happens. I mean, this team last year went, their first 3 games with their kicker missing the game-winning field goals? Okay. Started off 1-4, finished 9-7, barely missed out on the playoffs. The Chargers were a very good team. At the time, I think, towards the end of the season, they're probably one of the hottest teams in football. Okay. And I think now we've seen it for so long where the Chargers just come up short every time to where people don't really want to pay attention to them anymore. And I understand it. Okay. I mean, it goes back all the way to those Chargers teams when Rivers was younger and they had LT. Those teams should have won at least one Super Bowl. Okay. I believe it was one year where Marty Schottenheimer goes 15-1. They lose in the playoffs. Marty Schottenheimer gets fired, I think. Those Chargers teams by far were the biggest underachievers probably on the history of the NFL, honestly. Okay. There was that late 90s Vikings team that underachieved. The Chargers underachieved. And it seems like the Chiefs are like that new version of that team when they had Alex Smith. All right, the Chiefs were a very good team. It's just a matter of when they got to the playoffs, they completely shrunk. All right. And with the Chargers, I mean, it's a matter of Super Bowl window has shrunk. Okay, that's all done. As far as them making the playoffs, that's still a possibility. But Phillip Rivers, I mean, how many more years do we think he still has left? At the most. I'd say 2, 3, maybe, at the most. All right. And with them, it's a matter of, I mean, you got Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa on the D-line. You added Derwin James in the draft. Secondary is going to be even better. This is it right here. Okay, and the AFC is pretty weak right now. Like I said, the AFC West isn't looking too good. I'd say the Chargers are better than the Titans, the Texans, and the Colts in the AFC South. All right, I like Jacksonville a lot there. As far as the AFC North, Chargers are better than the Browns, the Ravens, the Bengals, and they can compete with the Steelers. Okay? I'd say that's where their level's at right now is with the Steelers. And as far as the AFC East, I mean, Patriots are the only team you really got to worry about there. So as of right now, I mean, I'd say the Chargers are a top 3, top 4 AFC team right now. And if anything, I might take them over the Jags, given that I like the Chargers offense better. Jags do have one of the best defenses in football, but when you're the Chargers and you got a top 10, that's going to help. So we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, they got to figure out what they're going to do at tight end now. There's not really any great free agents left out there. Okay, I was looking at it earlier. It seems like they're going to have their choice at Antonio Gates, Julius Thomas, or Coby Fleener. Coby Fleener didn't work out in New Orleans. Julius Thomas hasn't really been a good tight end since he left Denver. And Antonio Gates, I mean, I feel like that's going to be the most logical option there, doesn't it? Yeah, he's old, but he knows the system, and he's been there for his whole career. All right, Mercedes Lewis is also a tight end that's on the market right now, but he really doesn't have any receiving ability anymore. He's more so just a blocking tight end. All right. Or you can head over to New England, see what they think of Rob Gronkowski. Maybe you slip them a few draft picks. Seems like something that they were trying to build up for next season, the Patriots, those draft picks for the 2019 draft, 2018, whichever, 2019, I should say. Maybe you do that. But then again, I mean, the Chargers only need a tight end for 1 year because after this season, Hunter Henry's going to be back to being the top guy. So I think the move is Antonio Gates. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. Like, yeah, he's old. Yeah, he's not what he once was, but he can still do a job, I feel. All right. And plus, it's just good to have a guy who's been there before as far as just being around the team and all that. Let's look at Antonio Gates' stats the last few years. Let's see. So 2017, I mean, he played in 16 games, only started 4 of them. He had 30 receptions, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns. The year before that, started in 9 games, had 53 receptions, 548 yards, 7 touchdowns. And I mean, those 2016 numbers weren't far off of Hunter Henry's. If anything, they were better. All right, in 2017, I mean, I think he was about 22 catches less, 100 and something yards less. Had the same amount of touchdowns, I believe. So, Antonio Gates can still do a job, obviously, but I mean, you got Keenan Allen and Tyrell Williams there too, so it's not like it's going to hurt the defense big time, or offense or big time or anything like that. So, we'll see what they end up deciding to do, but it's got to be Antonio Gates, I feel. So, let's look at their schedule and pick the games there. So, week 1, they got the Chiefs. I'm going to say that's 1-0. Week 2 against the Bills, 2-0. Week 3 against the Rams, 2-1. Week 4 against the 49ers, 3-1. Week 5 against the Raiders, 4-1. Then they got the Browns, 6-1. Titans, I'll say 6-2. At Seattle, 6-3. Versus the Raiders, 6-4. Broncos, 7-4. Cardinals, 8-4. Steelers, 8-5. Let's see, Bengals, 9-5. Chiefs, 9-7. Or actually 9-6. Ravens, 10-6. Actually, I get this wrong. I think I might have got this wrong. So week 1, they're playing the Chiefs. I got them 1-0 there. Then the Bills, 2-0. Rams, 2-1. 49ers, 3-1. Raiders, 4-1. Browns, 5-1. Titans, 5-2. Seahawks, 5-3. At the Raiders, 5-4. Broncos, 6-4. Cardinals, 7-4. Steelers, 7-5. Bengals, 8-5. At the Chiefs, 8-6. Versus the Ravens, 9-6. At the Broncos, 9-7. So yeah, I got the finishing 9-7 this year. All right. They'll probably get anywhere from 8 to 11 wins, I think. So I think that's pretty fair there. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about Kansas City. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We spent that first segment talking about the LA Chargers. Still not used to calling them that. I always want to call them San Diego, but nonetheless, I always got to catch myself. But like I said, yeah, we talked about them for the first segment. They lost Hunter Henry for the season, first day of OTAs. Ended up blowing out his knee running routes. And that's not an ideal such situation for the Chargers to be in. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, they got to be bringing back Antonio Gates, don't they? I mean, I feel like Colby Fleener, Julius Thomas, or even Mercedes Lewis would be the wrong options there. All right. And they probably will end up bringing back. Antonio Gates. I think it's going to be a good move for them. And plus, Antonio Gates, he knows the system. He's been there for his whole career. So, yeah, that's the move to make. Unless, of course, you can figure out a way to get Rob Gronkowski from the Patriots, which I don't see happening at all. All right. I mean, yeah, there's no way I see Rob Gronkowski leaving the Patriots, honestly. Unless it was through free agency or something like that. But as far as a trade, I don't see it really going down. All right. Looked at their schedule. Did their wins and losses. I got them going 9-7 right now. And again, I mean, I'll have all these teams going one way or another. Sometimes I'll forget if I pick this team against that team or whatever, because they all play each other. But nonetheless, I got them going 9-7. All right. And that division, I mean, it's not the best. I'll just say that. It's got potential, actually, is what I probably should say. The Chargers, I think, are already a good team. The Broncos are a good quarterback play away from being a good team. And I guess that's the same with the Chiefs. It's just a matter of now you got to wait and see what Patrick Mahomes really is. Okay? And as far as the Raiders, seems like they're stuck in a time machine and they're going backwards. Okay? And necessarily going back in time isn't always a great thing. All right? Especially in the NFL, where it's a league where you got to progress with it. Okay, you can't go and try and bring back the fullback position or anything like that. There's a reason why the NFL is the way it is now. Okay, it's a league of parity. That's probably one of the most overused phrases in all of the NFL. It's a parity league. All right. And if you're trying to change the wheel, I don't think you're really going to succeed too much. But we'll talk more about the Raiders and changing the wheel in the third segment. Now we got the Chiefs. Chiefs last few years been a real good team. Okay? Been a team where you maybe think, hey, they can maybe make it to the Super Bowl this year given the way that they're playing. All right? They had a yearly tradition of beating up on the Patriots in the first couple weeks of the season whenever they had to play them. But, I mean, doing well in the regular season doesn't really help you out too much come playoff time. Okay? This past season, they go 10-6, end up winning the AFC West. Alex Smith probably has the best year of his career. You got a guy in Kareem Hunt who's already looking like a top 10 running back. Okay. Tyreek Hill, about as explosive as you can be. And Travis Kelce, a top 3 tight end in the league. Where you could make the argument maybe he's top 2. All right. Defense took a step back, but nonetheless plays well. Okay. You may get to the playoffs. You get to play a Titans team who didn't really look good at all heading into the playoffs. I mean, finished the last half of the season pretty weak. Okay. Lost the majority of their games to finish off the last part of the season. So you figure this would be a nice little tune-up before we see New England in the next round. The Chiefs were playing well. They're up 21-0. And they gave it up. All right. Classic Chiefs there. Now, you trade Alex Smith, and it's the Patrick Mahomes era. Okay, and like I said earlier in the first segment, okay, those Chargers teams with LT and Young, Phillip Rivers, should have won a Super Bowl. This Chiefs team, I'm not going to go out and say should have won a Super Bowl, but they should have did a whole lot more in the playoffs, and I think that's fair. Okay? And I think a lot of that blame goes to Andy Reid. Okay? I mean, let's not forget that playoff game last year where Travis Kelce goes down, and instead of giving the ball to your next best offensive player and Kareem Hunt, you just refuse. I mean, Kareem Hunt only touched the ball 11 times in that game. You were up 21-0. Why not just run the ball? All right. But Andy Reid has always been known to make questionable decisions like that. All right. He's always been that way. And I think that's what maybe hurt that team. So now heading into the season, I mean, you got needs at the D-line spot, linebacking spot, and cornerback spot since you got rid of Marcus Peters. Okay. You're going into the season with a quarterback in his second year who didn't even really play in his first at all. The Chiefs are similar to the Seahawks in the way where there was a lot of turnover on defense and they got some questions at offense, but I think the Chiefs are better set up to, if one team were to make the playoffs, I guess be good enough to make the playoffs. All right. But I like what the Chiefs did in the draft. Okay, they had a lot of defensive needs, and they spent the entire draft on defense. Second round, that was their first pick. They take Breland Speaks, defensive end out of Ole Miss. Third round, they take Derek Nady, defensive tackle out of Florida State. Third round, second pick of the third round, they take Dorian O'Daniel, linebacker out of Clemson. Fourth round, they take Armani Watts, safety out of Texas A&M. Sixth round, they take Tremont Smith, cornerback out of Central Arkansas. And then their second pick of the sixth round, they take Khalil McKenzie, defensive tackle out of Tennessee. All right. And they took defensive players at every need there. Linebacker, defensive line, and corner. And they took a safety. Okay. I'm not sure how much playing time these guys are going to get or who's going to end up making this team. But nonetheless, it's good to see that the Chiefs know what they need to work on. All right. And I mean, as far as the offensive end goes, Patrick Mahomes has a rocket for an arm. Okay. He could very well end up being one of the better quarterbacks in the league eventually. But there's a point where Andy Reid's got to work with him, and there's a point where he's got to get on the same page with guys like Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt and Travis Kelce. Okay? In the same way I said for the Chargers, I mean, the division's up for grabs for them to take because the division's looking weak. The Chiefs, you could say the same thing. Okay? The Chiefs are probably the most intriguing team in this division just given the fact that their season depends on this quarterback. All right? And I mean, this is a move that needs to work out for everyone involved. Let's say that Patrick Mahomes just looks terrible out there, stinks it up. Chiefs only win about 4 or 5 games. That's not going to look good on Andy Reid. Okay? It won't at all. Especially given that you had a guy in Alex Smith who was a winner for you during the regular season. Obviously, during playoffs, it was a whole different story. But nonetheless, was a guy who could do the job and put you in position to win. You're going out on a limb and you're taking a risk. Okay? So we're going to have to see what the Chiefs end up doing this season. I'm not really sure what to think of them, so I guess we just got to wait and see, like I said. But I do think that they are better than the Raiders. And, I mean, if Patrick Mahomes turns out to be a good quarterback, then they very well could make the playoffs this year. But I don't really have an idea of wins and losses for them right now. I'm going to look at their schedule in a bit, and I guess base it off of that. But it's just a matter of the Chiefs did waste the last 4 years, I think, or however long they had Alex Smith there. Okay. They should have done a whole lot better as far as maybe picking up a couple of playoff wins would have helped. All right. I mean, who knows if they would have played the Patriots? Maybe it would have. Because, I mean, the Chiefs somehow know what it takes to beat the Patriots. I mean, it's almost like they're the Patriots' kryptonite. Okay? And I'm not sure what is different that they do compared to all the other teams in order to beat the Patriots that way, but who knows? Maybe if they would have beat Tennessee, they could have gotten past New England, possibly. All right? It was a possibility. This might have been one of the worst New England teams in quite some time. Obviously still good enough to make the Super Bowl, but compared to all the other Super Bowl teams they've had, I wouldn't say it was the best. All right? But I am very curious to see how that secondary looks without Marcus Peters. If I was the Chiefs, I wouldn't have gotten rid of him, but obviously they had their reasons. And that was a guy right there who forced a lot of turnovers. And obviously you can't teach that, so we'll see what ends up going on. But let's look at their schedule and see what I got them going at. All right, so week 1, they got the Chargers in LA. I got them going 0-1, 0-2 versus Steelers. 1-2 versus the 49ers since that's at home. 1-3 versus the Broncos. 1-4 versus the Jags. 1-5 versus the Patriots. 2-5 versus the Bengals. Let's see, 3-5 versus the Broncos. 3-6 versus the Browns. 3-7 versus the Cardinals. 3-8 versus the Rams. 4-8 versus the Raiders, 5-8 versus the Ravens, 6-8 versus the Chargers, 6-9 versus the Seahawks, 7-9 versus the Raiders. So I got them going 7-9. All right, and obviously that's not going to be as good as they were last season when they finished 10-6. And again, I guess 6 to 9 wins is where I got them at right now. All right. I think that's pretty fair right now. I guess having them going 7-9, just given that they got a rookie quarterback and a bunch of questions on defense. So I feel pretty good with that. So we're going to wrap it up there. Next up, we're going to be talking Raiders. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked Chargers and Chiefs. I got the Chargers going 9-7, Chiefs going 7-9, and I mean Raiders. I'm not sure what I got them going at right now. Raiders have kind of disappointed me with their offseason. I'm not really sure what John Gruden has planned for this team. It seems like he's going in a bunch of different directions. It's a little ridiculous, all right? And we've talked about John Gruden a lot in this podcast so far this offseason, so you guys pretty much know how I feel. I mean, John Gruden in reality, yes, he's won a Super Bowl, but other than that, what has he done? Okay? He's not a guy who consistently has great teams or anything like that. I mean, his coaching record is just a little above 500, so at best, really, he's just a 500 coach. And I'm not saying necessarily that Gruden's a bad coach, but I think that everyone does overhype him a little, and I think that's fair. It seems that once he got this Monday Night Football booth gig, that people kind of elevated him as far as being a football mind, and I'm not sure if it was because of Gruden's grinders, that little QB camp that he had, but nonetheless, I mean, I think it was a bit much as far as hyping him up. I mean, that Monday night job is what got him a 10-year, $100 million contract, which is honestly ridiculous for anyone who's a head coach. And we've never really seen it. We've never seen anything like that before. And I'm curious to see the next great coach who's out there, what he'll get. Okay? Like, are 10-year contracts going to be the norm? Are $100 million deals going to be the norm for head coaches? I'm not sure. Okay? Maybe Jim Harbaugh ends up wanting to move back over into the NFL. Let's say he doesn't beat Ohio State this year. He's going to be available. We've already seen that he could win in the NFL. Came close to winning the Super Bowl. All right. How about the 49ers playing great? Once he left, that franchise pretty much went down. Of course, now it seems to be fixed up, but you get what I'm saying. What would a guy like Jim Harbaugh get? I don't think Jim Harbaugh would get 10 years, $100 million, but I think he'd get something near that. Okay. I'm not sure if owners or GMs are going to be willing to give out not yearly, but, decade-long contracts. That doesn't really work out. Okay? I mean, Gruden at least has 4 or 5 years, guaranteed for him, to be there. Obviously, the money and all that's all going to be going to him, but when I say guaranteed, I mean he's got 4 or 5 years to do something with the Raiders. I think after that is when he starts to be on the short leash if it's not working. All right. And obviously we've seen this year with John Gruden saying he doesn't like the analytics stuff, isn't much of a technology guy. He probably still prints out his directions and all that. But nonetheless, I mean, Gruden, it seems, has been trying to take football back in time rather than move forward with it. And that usually never works out for a team. Okay, and we've seen it all the time. And I still don't understand the move of cutting Michael Crabtree and bringing in Jordy Nelson. Okay? I mean, I feel like Jordy Nelson is a little overhyped among his peers. Because you had Aaron Rodgers talking the other day about how it wouldn't make sense to cut Jordy Nelson and then bring in Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant would be an upgrade over Jordy Nelson. I think we should all be able to agree on that. All right. Jordy Nelson was a great receiver, sure. But the last couple of years, I think he hasn't been that great. All right. And this year, this past season, he didn't really look good at all. So taking away a guy like Michael Crabtree, not in Jordy Nelson, who is older, I believe, and not as good, I believe, was a head scratcher. Okay. And maybe it was one of those where it's a move to fix up the locker room a bit, but even then, I mean, that's fine, but you're just downgrading. Okay, they did bring in Martavis Bryant. I'm curious to see how he fits in with the team. Okay, obviously didn't really seem to be a good fit in Pittsburgh. He's got all the talent in the world, but it's just a matter of when you're out there calling out your teammates for starting over you and you're saying you're better than them, I don't really think that's a smart move. Okay, and what I mean by that is when Juju Smith-Schuster was getting more time than him, and then you got Martavis Bryant pretty much talking on Instagram saying that he's better and all that. Not really your smartest idea. Okay. But I do think in that offense, Martavis Bryant will play well, and I do think just given the kind of quarterback that Derek Carr is, he'll do fine with him too. Okay. Then you got Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper had a very disappointing year last season. And I think we could all agree on that. I mean, the guy couldn't catch the ball really to save his life. It was honestly a little ridiculous. And I think that's been Amari Cooper's biggest problem since he came into the league is his drops. Okay. He's got the makings of becoming one of the best receivers in the league. Like, that's not a doubt at all. All right, but it's just a matter when you're the lead receiver and you're not catching the ball, that's going to be a problem. All right. His catch percentage last season, he only caught 48 passes, had 96 targets, was at 50% his catch percentage. That's not great. Usually you want to take in all your targets. That was his lowest since he's been in the league. Last year was at its highest. He had 83 catches, 132 targets, and the year before that he had 130 targets, 72 receptions. And Amari Cooper last year, I mean, it's not like he was producing and just dropping the ball. It's just like he wasn't producing at all. All right, probably one of the bigger disappointments last season. What's he going to do this year? And then, like I said, you got the Raiders defense, who was one of the worst in the league last season. I'm not really sure that they did enough to address that. Okay. This year in the draft, they spent 5 picks on defense and the rest on offense or special teams. All right. I think they should have spent their first round pick on Derwin James because I don't like the way their secondary plays. Secondary was getting burnt game after game last year. All right. Safeties couldn't keep up with the deep route players. And I think Derwin James would have been someone who could have helped in that defense. I think they could have also went Tremaine Edmonds if they weren't going James. All right. So I do think they need linebacker help, but they go offensive line. And for some, they were saying that was a reach right there in the first round to get Colton Miller. And I'd say it was too. All right. Second round, they take P.J. Hall, defensive tackle out of Sam Houston State. Third round, they take Brandon Parker, offensive tackle out of North Carolina State. Second pick of the third round, they take Arden Key, defensive end out of LSU. I actually like that pick. I think he's going to be a good player for this team. All right. The fourth round, they take Nick Nelson, cornerback out of Wisconsin. Fifth round, they take Maurice Hurst, defensive tackle out of Michigan. He's the one who had the heart condition. That's why he fell so much. was seen as a first-round talent, but again, the heart condition is what dropped him so far. And if the heart condition is something where it's not really going to affect him in the NFL, then I think that was a very good pick for Oakland there. But it's just a matter of, the guys that you took with your first couple of picks, you could have taken better players, I think. All right, but either way, I like the Arden Key and Maurice Hurst pick. And then they take Johnny Townsend, punter out of Florida, Hazim Victor, inside linebacker out of Washington, and then Marcel Aitman, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. So I guess my favorite picks would be the Hurst and Key pick. But then again, like I said, I would have liked them to have taken Edmonds or Derwin James in the first round. I think that's more of an instant impact type player rather than Colton Miller. I could be wrong. Again, I'm not an NFL scout expert or anything like that. But it's just I do think that they need to adjust those defensive needs early on. All right. And as far as them in the division goes, I do think that they are the fourth best team in that division. Okay. I don't necessarily think they're a bad team, but I don't necessarily think they're a good team either. I think they're probably a below average team as of right now. All right. And it's honestly kind of crazy to see that they went from 1 year making the playoffs, could have made some noise in the playoffs, but Derek Carr gets hurt. Next year, Raiders are going to be a very good team, could challenge the Patriots, end up going 6-10, and now it's kind of looking like they haven't really done so well this offseason, so they could be a little bit worse possibly. All right. It hasn't really looked good for them so far. So let's actually look at their schedule, do wins and losses, and then we'll be moving on to the fourth segment where we talk about the Broncos. All right. So week 1, they got the Rams. That's 0-1. Then they're in Denver, 0-2. Then in Miami, 0-3. Versus the Browns, 1-3. At the Chargers, 1-4. Versus Seattle, 1-5. Versus the Colts, 2-5. At San Francisco, 2-6. Then against the Chargers again, I think 3-6. At the Cardinals, 3-7. At the Ravens, 4-7. Versus the Chiefs, 5-7 versus the Steelers, 5-8 at the Bengals, 5-9 versus the Broncos, 6-9 at the Chiefs, 6-10. All right. So I got them going 6-10. Same as last season. I don't think that's really far off. All right. And I guess their win and losses, would be anywhere from 8 to 5 wins for me. The Raiders don't really do much for me here. I don't like their moves so far this offseason. I don't like the fact that John Gruden thinks Christian Hackenberg could be a good quarterback. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see whether or not his plan's going to work. But like I said, for every coach that tries to go back to this old school football type of thing, it doesn't work. All right. So we'll see what they end up doing. But as of right now, I got them going 6-10, and I don't think that's really a bad prediction there. So who knows? But either way, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we'll be talking Denver Broncos, so stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked Chargers, we've talked Chiefs, and we've talked Raiders. I got the Raiders going 6-10, Chargers 9-7, and then the Chiefs 7-9, I believe. All right, so I think yeah, Raiders' record was 6-10, so I got them staying the same. Chiefs' record was 10-6, so I got them getting worse. And not necessarily, well, yeah, I guess they're going to be worse, but I mean, it all depends on what Pat Mahomes does. And then with the Chargers, I actually got them going the same record as last year. All right, going to be a bit difficult for them since they lost Hunter Henry for the rest of the season. Well, for the season, I guess, before it even starts. Like I said, I was expecting him to be a guy where he how do you say, has like a breakout type year. All right, him and Jack Doyle were my two guys there where I thought they would, but now I guess it's just a matter of I got to wait on Jack Doyle, so hopefully he stays healthy. All right, but either way, man, we talked about those three teams so far. Now we're going to be talking about the Denver Broncos. In this AFC West division, I mean, a couple years ago it was looking like one of the best. Now it might be one of the worst, might be the worst in the AFC. All right. I mean, I think maybe that might be the AFC North or the AFC East possibly. The AFC South, I think, is the best division in the AFC currently, just given that they all got teams who could end up making the playoffs. And the Colts could, but that's only if Andrew Luck is 100% and playing, just starting for them week 1. All right. And I really hope this Colts team didn't mess up Andrew Luck, meaning just pretty much just not putting enough talent around him as far as offensive line help and all that. All right. Because Andrew Luck, when he's out there playing healthy, he's a top 5 quarterback, and it's not up for debate. He's the kind of quarterback that makes the players around him better. All right. So we'll see if he's ready week 1, but nonetheless, yeah, I do think that the AFC South is the best division of football. Not division of football, division of the AFC. Let me clear that up. But nonetheless, now, like I said, we got the Denver Broncos. So let's talk about them. All right, so Denver won the Super Bowl a few years back. Ended up beating the Panthers. Okay, that was probably the worst year of Peyton Manning's career as far as statistical wise. He ended up getting benched for Brock Osweiler that year and ends up coming back to start again. And, I mean, they won the Super Bowl that year because of defense. All right. And I think, was that a couple years after they got blown out by Seattle? I'd have to double check. I mean, these Super Bowls eventually all become a little bit of a blur, just at the time that they happened. All right. But nonetheless, ever since then, they pretty much just wasted that window. Okay. Peyton Manning retires after that Super Bowl win against the Panthers, and they didn't have a plan after that. Drafted Paxton Lynch, he was no good. Okay. Tried making Trevor Siemian the quarterback. They were not great at all, honestly. Okay. And then you bring in Brock Osweiler, but he's not the guy. And it's just with the Broncos, I mean, you had one of the best defenses of all time. All right. Yeah, they won the Super Bowl back in 2016. They lost it in 2014. So, yeah, they won it 2 years after they lost. But nonetheless, I mean, yeah, they wasted 2 Super Bowl window years. And now you got to hope that Case Keenum is the guy. Otherwise, it's just another wasted year. Okay, and with John Elway, I mean, if he was any other GM or VP of football operations or whatever you want to call his job title, he'd have been out of there a long time ago, I feel. Okay? There's no reason that this team should have been as bad as it was the last couple of years. Last year, they finished 5-11, fourth in the AFC West. All right, with the talent they have on that team, that's inexcusable. Okay, and I get why he's still there and all that. It's more so where the Broncos can't fire him. You can't fire the guy who won you 2 Super Bowls. Okay, and was the leader of football operations when you won your 3rd. All right. And it's weird how it kind of works out that way, but, I mean, I do think that the offseason they've had so far has been pretty good. All right, like I said, I mean, I think that Case Keenum could play well with this team. All right. I do think he can. I think Case Keenum is a guy where he's not going to make anyone else around him better, but if he's got talent around him, he's going to thrive. He's got talent around him. Okay. We got Demaryius Thomas, Manuel Sanders, Courtland Sutton, and running back position's kind of foggy there. I mean, maybe they'll go with Royce Freeman, the guy that they drafted in the 3rd round, or maybe Devontae Booker becomes the starting running back there. And Devontae Booker has shown what he could be, the type of running back he could be. So I don't think he's necessarily a bad one or anything like that. And as far as the defense goes, you had the 5th pick. You take Bradley Chubb. You put him on the opposite side of Von Miller. That's a win-win situation right there. Okay? Von Miller, still one of the best pass rushers in the league. Okay, he's only 28, I believe, so he's still got some years left in his prime. Secondary still looking good. Linebackers maybe could use some work, but they're not bad or anything like that. They do have a team built to make the playoffs. Okay, it all comes down to the quarterback position. All right. And, I mean, also, you got to think, is Vance Joseph a good coach? They ended up bringing him back. Okay. Maybe that's just what it is there. They haven't been well coached. I was kind of skeptical when they brought in Joseph, the Denver Broncos. Because I remember watching him over in Miami when he was defensive coordinator in that 1 year he was there. And Miami probably had one of the worst defenses in the league. Okay. They did have some injuries, but it's just the guys they had out there. I mean, looked like they were confused. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what their assignments were or anything like that. So that's what kind of made me skeptical about the Broncos bringing him in. But nonetheless, if they believe that's their guy, then that's their guy. All right. So now it's just a matter of taking advantage, I guess, of the quote-unquote weak division, I guess. I mean, the Chiefs and Broncos are the teams right here where I think a lot of us really have no clue which way they're going to go. Okay, you could have an idea, but it's a matter of, I mean, would anyone be surprised if the Chiefs had a real bad season? Probably not. Would anyone be surprised if the Chiefs had a very good season? Probably not. Would anyone be surprised if the Broncos are just really bad this year? I wouldn't say so. And would anyone be surprised if they were very good this year? I don't think so either. All right. I think people would be surprised if the Raiders had a really good season this upcoming year. And with the Chargers, I'd be pretty surprised if they ended up playing bad all season long. But it's just with the Broncos and Chiefs, you really have no clue about it. All right. But I mean, looking at their draft, I think they did have one of the better drafts out of everyone. Round 1, they take Bradley Chubb. Round 2, they take Cortland Sutton. Wide receiver out of SMU. Round 3 is when they take Royce Freeman, running back out of Oregon. Second pick of round 3, they take Isaac Yiadom, cornerback out of Boston College. 4th round, they take Josie Jewell, linebacker out of Iowa. 4th round, second pick of the 4th round, they take Deshaun Hamilton, wide receiver out of Penn State. He could be a sleeper for that team. 5th round, they take Troy Fumagalli, tight end out of Wisconsin. 6th round, they take Sam Jones, guard out of Arizona State. Second pick of the 6th round, they take Keyshawn Bierra, linebacker out of Washington. And then 7th round, they take David Williams, running back out of Arkansas. So I did like the picks that they made. I think they all were picking to address needs and stuff like that. So we'll see what ends up going on. I think Bradley Chubb, Cortland Sutton, and Royce Freeman are going to have some big roles as far as this regular season for this team. So we'll see what ends up happening. But let's check the schedule and pick their wins and losses and see what I got them going. So week 1, they got Seattle at 0-1. Then they got the Raiders 1-1. At the Ravens 2-1 versus the Chiefs 3-1. Jets 4-1, Rams 4-2, at the Cardinals 4-3, at the Chiefs 4-4 versus the Texans 4-5 versus the Chargers 4-6 versus the Steelers 4-7, at the Bengals 5-7, at San Francisco. I believe I had San Francisco winning that game 5-8 versus the Browns 6-8, at the Raiders 6-9 versus the Chargers 7-9, I believe. So I got him going 7-9. All right. That's a 2-win upgrade there. And again, I mean, this all depends on how well Case Keenum plays. I guess I picked it right here a little bit down the middle. So, yeah, I think 7-9 is a nice little one to leave off of right there. They'll probably win anywhere from 7 to 10 games, honestly. Like, they could end up being a good team in this AFC. All right. It's all just a matter of how well Case Keenum plays and if the defense can pick it up compared to how they've played the last couple of years, which I think they can do. So, like I said, we just got to wait and see about it. But, yeah, I do feel pretty comfortable with the 7-9 pick. So, I guess I got the Chargers winning the division. That's no surprise. Chargers winning the division. Broncos and Chiefs both going 7-9, and the Raiders going 6-10. And again, all these picks are subject to change. All right. So we're going to wrap it up here. I mean, there's not really much else going on in the NFL right now. All right. Is there any other moves being made or anything like that? Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. That's all going on right now. So, yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. Today we did the AFC West edition. I'm not sure which division we're going to be covering tomorrow, so we're going to wait on that. Maybe the NFC South. I've been thinking of them. There's a lot to talk about there. Maybe the NFC North. All right. I like what the Bears have been doing. I think the Packers are going to be a whole lot better this season. Let's see. You got the Detroit Lions, who I think are going to be very good this season, and also the Vikings. So maybe we'll do AFC or NFC North tomorrow. Who knows? But either way, thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow, so stay tuned, and I'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.